We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Staring at that pan full of oil after cooking, wondering what to do with it. Is pouring it down the drain really that bad?
Well, the journey that oil goes on after it leaves our kitchens is a lot more complicated than most of us realize, that's for sure.
Yeah, and when you think about how much oil must be left over for making thousands of frozen French fries or something, on an industrial scale.
It really makes you wonder.
It does. And that's what we're diving into today. Sustainable cooking oil waste management. But not just in our kitchens, for big food manufacturers. And we've got an expert in sustainable waste management with us today to break it all down, especially as it relates to the food industry. So glad you could join us.
Happy to be here. It's a topic I'm really passionate about.
So let's just get right into it. Why should we care about cooking oil waste? Is it really that big of a deal?
Oh, it definitely is, especially when you think about the massive scale of the issue. We're not talking about a couple of tablespoons here and there.
Right, like I was saying with the French fries.
Exactly. This is industrial scale food production, so just imagine the quantities of oil involved. If this waste isn't handled properly, it can have some seriously negative impacts on the environment. We're talking about clogged infrastructure, risks to public health, and it can even be a fire hazard.
Okay, so we're talking about more than just a few clogged drains. What are some of the specific environmental impacts?
Well, for one thing, improperly disposed of cooking oil can contaminate landfills, which release harmful greenhouse gases as it breaks down. And this runoff, it can actually seep into our soil and waterways, too.
Harming wildlife and ecosystems, I imagine.
Exactly. One particularly concerning issue is the potential for sewer systems to get completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of grease.
Ah, now that's something everyone can relate to, a clogged drain. Can't imagine that on a citywide scale.
Definitely not. And then there are the less obvious consequences, like the potential for this accumulated oil to create a breeding ground for bacteria in food processing plants.
That's just yuck.
Nobody wants that. It's a recipe for contamination and a whole host of problems that are best avoided.
So it seems like this is a multifaceted problem with some potentially really serious consequences. But the good news is that there are companies out there, like GreenFlow, that are tackling this challenge head on. I know you've been looking into their approach, and it seems like they've carved out a unique niche in this sector. They've been around for a while, haven't they?
Over 30 years. And what's really impressive is their dedication to tailored solutions. They really get that a one-size-fits-all approach just isn't going to work when it comes to something as specific as cooking oil waste management.
That makes a lot of sense, especially for a company that's been in the business for as long as they have. It shows they've really put in the time to understand the complexities of the industry. But what do these tailored solutions actually look like in practice? What are the benefits for businesses that decide to partner with GreenFlow?
Well, a major focus for them is cost savings. They help businesses turn what was once a costly waste product into a potential source of revenue. They work with businesses to streamline their waste collection and even figure out ways to make money from their byproducts.
Hold on, make money. Are you saying they've found a way to actually profit from used cooking oil?
It's true. One of the ways they do this is by helping convert that used cooking oil into biodiesel. It's a renewable energy source that can be sold or even used to fuel a company's own fleet.
Wow, so they've created a closed-loop system. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder why more companies haven't jumped on this. Are there other reasons besides the environmental benefits and potential cost savings that make partnering with GreenFlow a good idea for businesses?
Absolutely. Compliance is another huge factor. Environmental regulations, especially around waste disposal, can get incredibly complicated.
I bet.
GreenFlow actually acts as a guide for businesses to make sure they're navigating those regulations correctly and avoiding any hefty fines. For example, they're really on top of those EPA guidelines on oil disposal, which I've heard can be a real headache.
It sounds like they're taking care of all the legal headaches, so companies can stay focused on what they do best, making all that delicious food we love. Speaking of doing things by the book, I understand GreenFlow is big on transparency. They give really detailed documentation throughout the entire process, don't they?
You got it. Every step of the way, from the initial assessment to the final disposal, they keep everything fully documented. This not only ensures transparency, but also provides businesses with valuable data that they can use to track their own sustainability efforts and see where they can improve even more.
So it's not just a box to check off. It's about giving businesses the tools they need to become more sustainable. Okay, so we've talked about the why businesses should rethink their oil waste. Now let's get into the how. Give us a behind-the-scenes look at GreenFlow's process. What can a company expect when they decide to partner with GreenFlow?
Well, the first step is a comprehensive waste assessment. GreenFlow really takes the time to get to know each business, their specific needs, and the challenges they face. They analyze the types and volume of cooking oil waste generated, how their facilities are laid out, and their sustainability goals overall.
It's a very personalized approach.
It is, and based on that assessment, they develop a custom disposal plan. This plan outlines the most efficient and sustainable ways to collect, transport, and process the waste. That includes determining the optimal type and frequency of collections and finding the most responsible disposal methods.
Okay, so they've got their plan, they're collecting the waste, and then what? Take us inside a GreenFlow facility. What's happening to all that oil? What kind of technology are they using?
One of the methods they use, which we touched on earlier, is anaerobic digestion. This essentially breaks down the waste without oxygen using microorganisms. And get this process doesn't just neutralize the waste, it actually converts it into biogas, which is a renewable energy source.
Wow, so they're creating energy from waste.
Exactly. This biogas can then be used to power their own facility or even be fed back into the grid, which further reduces their carbon footprint.
That's amazing. Like something out of the future.
It's a perfect example of a circular economy in action. And on top of that, they also have these advanced filtration systems that remove impurities to make sure that the final product, whether it's biodiesel or something else, meets the highest standards.
It's good to know they're not cutting any corners. They're committed to doing this right. Speaking of commitment, you mentioned earlier that GreenFlow partners with One Tree Planted. I'm really curious to learn more about that.
Yeah, so for every service they provide, GreenFlow plants a tree in partnership with One Tree Planted, which is a really cool organization focused on global reforestation.
So not only are they helping businesses be more sustainable, but they're also helping to restore forests around the world.
It really shows how committed they are to sustainability on a larger scale. They recognize that it goes beyond just dealing with waste. It's about actively trying to help heal the planet.
I love that. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about cooking oil, but I have a feeling GreenFlow doesn't just stop there. What other types of waste do they handle?
You're right. Their expertise goes way beyond just cooking oil. They actually handle a really wide range of waste streams, including hazardous materials, industrial waste, chemicals, even medical waste.
Medical waste. That's a whole other level.
It really speaks to their capabilities and their dedication to tackling some of the toughest challenges in waste management. They really can handle it all, from something as ordinary as used cooking oil to highly specialized industrial waste.
It sounds like they're a true one-stop shop for any business that's serious about sustainability. But let's shift gears for a second and bring this back to our listeners.
Yeah.
Someone listening might be thinking, okay, this is great for big companies, but what about me? How does this affect me directly? What did you say to them?
That's a really important point, and it gets to the heart of why we're even talking about this. Every decision we make, whether it's as a consumer or as a business owner, it has a ripple effect. When we choose to support companies that prioritize sustainability, like the ones partnering with GreenFlow, we're doing more than just using a service. We're actually part of a much bigger movement.
I like that, the ripple effect. It's easy to feel like our individual actions don't make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things.
Right, but that's not true at all.
So you're saying every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. When we support sustainable businesses, we're sending a message to the market. We're basically saying, this is what we want. We want responsible waste management. And that, in turn, encourages more innovation in recycling and resource recovery. Ultimately, it all contributes to a healthier planet for everyone.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected. Our actions have an impact, even in ways we might not always see.
Absolutely. It's about making conscious decisions that align with our values.
We often talk about voting with our wallets, and this seems like the perfect example of that.
Exactly. When we choose to support businesses that share our values, we're actively contributing to a more sustainable future.
That's a powerful takeaway. It's not just about what's going on behind closed doors in some factory. It's about the choices we make every single day. So for our listeners who are interested in learning more about GreenFlow, maybe even finding out how they can incorporate some of these sustainable practices into their own lives, where should they go?
Their website is a great place to start. They go into a lot of detail about their services and their commitment to sustainability. They even have some helpful tips for individuals who want to reduce their environmental impact.
Awesome. We'll be sure to include a link to their website in the show notes. Well, there you have it. We've taken a deep dive into the world of sustainable cooking oil waste management. And let me tell you, it's a lot more interesting than it sounds at first. We've gone from wondering about clogged kitchen sinks to exploring cutting-edge technology and even global reforestation, all starting with something as simple as used cooking oil. Remember, folks, even small changes can have a big impact. Until next time, keep those minds curious.